I want to say I just saw a documentary that featured someone who was able to get others to give them wild amounts of money. Yeah, I did, and it wasn't well put together. But now Netflix is bringing us the documentary film, The Tinder Swindler. Should you swipe left or right on this? All right, that's really kind of a dumb question for me to ask because I don't even know how to answer that question, mostly because I'm happily married and I've never been on Tinder. This documentary tells the jaw-dropping story of a prolific con man who posed as a billionaire playboy on Tinder and the women who set out to bring him down. This is a pretty thrilling and engaging documentary. It starts off with a woman named Cecile sitting in a restaurant telling her story of being on the dating app Tinder. And she's not a novice when it comes to the app, and she briefly explains how it works and her own psychology when searching the app. This begins as sort of a fairy tale love story where Cecile connects with a man named Simon and they hit it off almost immediately. She's an adventurous type and he's very wealthy, so after an initial coffee date, he invites her to fly off to Bulgaria with him on his private jet. Alright, so first red flag. Has Cecile never seen a crime show? I mean, she needs to watch a ton more true crime documentaries so that she doesn't end up in several trash bags spread throughout Europe. But okay, so I digress. The couple hits it off and begins a relationship. But after several months together, some extreme drama hits, and the dude's life is supposedly in jeopardy from his enemies, and he is in need of some quick cash to save him. Now, the circumstances are a bit far-fetched to me, but because of how much extravagance Simon has displayed to Cecile in travel, meals, clothing, and even cars, he comes across as credible, and then she obliges. The way this documentary builds, it becomes quite tense and then anxiety-ridden. I mean, this is from the producers of Don't F with Cats, so if you're familiar with that one, you know that the storytelling works to weave a very compelling and engaging tale, but that's also filled with some really good emotion. The interviews tell a very cohesive story, and they build out a really good timeline that illustrates Cecile and Simon's relationship. But why that's really important for timelines is that when the other women are introduced as being in this relationship with Simon, we have to know where they fit within the time frame. And once the crap hits the fan and the women are bilked out of just tons of cash, we get to see how prolific of a con man this dude was. Now, this does feel very similar to the other recent Netflix documentary called The Puppet Master. But the good thing with this film is that a ton of the how and why are examined and explained. I mean, the question of how he was able to convince these people to continue to send him money is, it's still there, but we get to hear and read so many of the conversations between Simon and his victims, so it becomes much easier to follow along and find out how he was able to manipulate so many. This is put together in a great looking package. Not only do the interviews look fantastic, they're set in intimate framing, so the victims are letting us into their world. But then the way that the voice messages, texts, and all the video and photos that are shared between Simon and his prey are displayed, they help to create a visually engaging story. And I know this is something very minor, and it may not stand out to many people, but I loved the title treatments that tell the locations of where the action is happening. The font is thin but spread across the screen in a very pleasant and eye-catching greenish color. And it all worked to just be beautiful, and I noticed, so I figured I'd draw your attention to it as well. Now, as the film plays out and more information on Simon is uncovered, further interviews are conducted, and we even get some exciting videos with a ton of surprising action. Now, there are some reenactments, but there is also real footage that investigative journalists shot while building their story. As this is also happening, the music score is slowly building, working in some pounding drums and a driving pace that just subtly increases the tension. And as the film reaches its climax, there's a small sense of justice that it's attained. But that being said, don't get too happy. There are end title cards that give additional information, and it's just disheartening and disgusting with what happens with Simon and the women. This isn't going to take too much of your time to watch either. It's a 113-minute film, and it moves very efficiently through the story. I was anxious for the women through a lot of this because it's just so sad as he manipulated them and pressured them into helping him. It was also very disquieting as their own personal financial risk continued to grow. I laughed at one point as he told one of the victims that he needed $30,000 in cash right away. Well, if he told that to me, he'd just be crap out of luck. I'm not that liquid. But I could offer him a ton of Blu-rays and snacks. The true crime aspect of this is very compelling and built out in a very convincing and thorough manner. I still have a few questions regarding how Simon was able to fake certain news items that he sends a couple of the women, but they're not large enough to break this for me. But overall, this is well worth the time to find out about a prolific and devious conman, especially because it takes the time to actually answer so many questions rather than creating more. It's still a sad story to take in, but hopefully, as more and more of these documentaries are made, people such as Simon just won't be able to get away with their scams. There's no sex or nudity, but there is a bunch of profanity and some images of violence. I highly recommend checking out The Tinder Swindler on Netflix. Are you familiar with this case, or did this one bring any new information to light for you? I'd love to hear your thoughts in the comments below. If you enjoyed this review, please give it a like. Also, don't forget to share and subscribe. I'm Chris. This is Movies and Munchies. Thanks for couching with me.